Good evening. Hope everybody is doing alright. Man, another one of those days where news was just all over the place. I don't have a whole lot of tabs brought up tonight. Figured we'd kind of try to make it a simple night. Like I said, news is all over the place. Don't know of anything outside of what I have for you to really discuss. Can't think of anything. Some news came out today, and I happened to see it. I was scrolling through social media, and it was posted by a local news station, and it was kind of bittersweet. It's something that I had always kept an eye on as far as the progress, and just kind of something that's always kind of tugged at me. And I'm talking about SIDS, or Sudden Infant Death Syndrome. And I actually, unfortunately, have an experience with that. It wasn't my child, but it was my best friend at the time's child. And it happened in the home that I lived at the time. He was over and just hanging out and stuff, and it's just one of those very, very unfortunate. I don't even know how to describe it. It's maddening. But even before that, even before I dealt with that life experience, there was something that tugged at me about it. I can remember hearing about it in health class in high school. And I can remember the impact that it had on me when I heard about it. It just did not make any sense. So I started looking into as much as I could outside of what they just talked about in our high school, which, you know, went to the school's library, went to the town's library, stuff like that. Just kind of found out what I could. And I thought, man, from everything that I was reading, it seemed like it was somewhat of a simple remedy. We may not know the cause, but maybe the remedy's pretty simple here. And I dated, and this is after, by the way, during this particular moment in time, after high school, I was dating a girl. And one of her friends was deaf. I've told this story before here on the show. And anyway, one of her friends was deaf. And, you know, I learned a few things from being around him. And one of those things was the alarm clock that he used anyway. Typically like a regular alarm clock, but it had a round disc that plugged into it that he put under his pillow, and that round disc vibrated. I mean, it vibrates like crazy. And so it was at some point after high school, after that experience, I had read a report that put it all together, and I was like, okay, so if we can cause some type of a stimulus, okay, we can just absolutely turn this around, right? If we can get the how do you? Okay, it's essentially it's like the body, the brain, just stops telling the heart to beat and stops telling the diaphragm to move, right? It's like your body just forgets to do that. And the odd thing is pretty much any kind of stimulus, right? Anything like a loud noise, you know, anything like that is enough just to kind of jolt the nervous system, and in most cases it seemingly would start back up again. So I thought, man, this is really a pretty simple solution. You just put a monitor on the child to monitor the vitals, And if it ever senses a loss of those vitals, you just blare a loud alarm and one of those vibrating discs under the mattress of the crib. Between those two stimuli, you could throw a light in the mix if you want. And, chances are you're going to stimulate that child enough that those involuntary actions are going to start automatically working again. And I actually went through all the process of putting a patent. And I didn't want any money. I didn't want anything. I just wanted the idea developed. And I went to a few different companies with it, and nobody would touch it with a 10-foot pole. And the reasoning I got is because if they put something out there and marketed it and it failed, they could be held liable. And I thought, so we just let this happen? Because somebody doesn't want to be sued? That was my wake-up call to the medical industry. A long time ago. I was probably, early 20s, I guess. So, nothing ever happened with it. Today, I come across this article. I'm sorry it took me so long to get here. I had to kind of fill that backstory so you might understand. While this story or this article makes me happy, in fact, it makes me elated, at the same time it's bittersweet. Because what it essentially has to say proves that I was on the right track. And it's frustrating. Let me go ahead and take you over to the web view and I'll show you the story the article. I keep calling it a story. I don't know. Maybe I'm trying to distance it. I don't know. Medical research breakthrough might have just solved the mystery of sudden infant death syndrome. Researchers at the Children's Hospital at Westmead in Australia have identified the first biochemical marker that could help detect babies more at risk of SIDS while they are alive. The biomarker, an enzyme called, and I'm not even going to try that, we'll say BCHE, was analyzed in the study published Saturday by the Lancet's eBiomedicine. The study measured BCHE activity in the blood of infants drawn at birth. It then measured the BCHE in both SIDS victims and infants dying from other causes and compared those levels to those surviving babies with the same birthday and gender. The study found that BCHE levels at birth were significantly lower in babies who later died of SIDS when compared to BCHE levels of infants who died of other causes and of living babies. Now here's the part that validates what my thoughts were. BCHE plays a major role in the brain's arousal pathway. Thus, researchers believe low levels of BCHE likely indicates an arousal deficit which reduces a baby's ability to wake or respond to his or her environment, causing vulnerability in SIDS. So, essentially, you create as much stimulus as you can when the brain goes into that mode, and you can, a good chance that you'll snap their brain out of that, like a trance almost. Dr. Carmel Harrington led the study. She lost her own child to SIDS 29 years ago, according to a press release. Harrington said the findings are a game changer. Babies have a very powerful mechanism to let us know when they are not happy. Usually, if a baby is confronted with a life-threatening situation, such as difficulty breathing during sleep because they are on their tummies, they will arouse and cry out. What this research shows is some babies don't have the same robust arousal response, Harrington said in a press release. This has long been thought to be the case, but up till now, we didn't know what was causing the lack of arousal. Now we know that BCHE is involved, we can begin to change the outcome for these babies and make SIDS a thing of the past. Harrington also said she hopes the findings bring some peace to grieving families. An apparently healthy baby is going to sleep and not waking up is every parent's nightmare, and until now there was absolutely no way of knowing which infant would succumb, but that's not the case anymore, Harrington said. The discovery has opened up the possibility for intervention and finally gives answers to parents who have lost their children so tragically. These families can now live with the knowledge that this was not their fault. Researchers said the next step is to require the BCHE biomarker to be measured in newborns at birth and then develop specific interventions to address the enzyme deficiency in infants who have it. And all this time, they could have been using a simple device. And I'm sure it wouldn't save 100% of their lives. I'm sure. Anyway, just a personally frustrating thing. Oh, by the way, I guess I did have something to talk about and I totally forgot the stupid thumbnail picture for tonight. And I don't have any news stories up on it or anything. So there's this, thing going around that there's this profile picture app thing that is basically going to turn over your entire life to the Russians, and they're going to red dawn you at dark 30. Specifically when you're on the toilet. So, rumor has it this app is the worst thing on the planet, and if you use it, you just signed over everything to Putin, and he can have free reign over your phone and everything else. So I immediately installed the app and started trolling. So that's all that's about. So nothing nothing important. Alright, next up. Finland's NATO membership will trigger response, says Moscow. Now, there were several different articles I could have brought up and talked about or whatnot. I wanted to kind of take a look at what's going on with the Russia situation a little deeper, among other things. But I wanted to kind of take an evening and put the spotlight a little bit more on that situation because I've been kind of skirting it. For one, everybody else is breathing Russia this and Russia that. And for two, not a lot of significant moves have really been made, at least that I feel, over the past, couple of days, 2-3 days. So it wasn't, in my opinion, really super necessary to focus on it. But now there are some things that are starting to be said and whatnot going on. I think it's getting even closer to moving on to that next step, which I do believe will be a global war. I think it'll be World War III, and I think we're edging ever closer to it. As you see, the headline, Finland's NATO membership will trigger response, says Moscow. Says here, Moscow has warned that Finland joining NATO would pose a direct threat to Russia's security and its acceptance to the military alliance that would prompt Russia to develop measures to ensure its safety. That's after Finnish officials confirmed on Thursday their commitment to join the U.S.-led bloc and announced plans to pen a formal application later this week. There is a current instruction from the President to develop a list of measures to strengthen our western flanks in connection with the strengthening of NATO's eastern flanks, said Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov during a daily press briefing on Thursday, adding that the expansion of NATO towards Russia's borders will not make the world of Eurasian continent any more secure. He added that Russia regrets Finland's decision to join the hostile steps taken by the EU and warned that Helsinki's attempts to join NATO would serve as a reason to develop respective mirror responses. The statement comes after Finnish leaders announced on Thursday a commitment to seek membership in the U.S.-led military bloc. President Sauli Niinisto and Prime Minister Sanna Marin of Finland expressed their view that as a member of NATO, Finland would strengthen the entire defense alliance, adding that their country must apply for NATO membership without delay. The officials said they plan to pen a formal application for membership on Sunday, after which the letter will be forwarded to Parliament for final approval. It's expected that the application could be finalized and submitted to NATO as early as next Monday. NATO claims to be purely defensive organization, but Russia, which shares 1,340 kilometers or 833 miles of land border with Finland, perceives the bloc's expansion as a threat to its national security. Last month, the former Russian President and Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev, who is currently deputy chairman of the country's Security Council, implied that if Finland and Sweden become members of NATO, Russia might be forced to deploy nuclear weapons to the Baltic region in order to preserve the balance of power. So, I kind of had a feeling that this was going to happen. And at this point, and I'm not picking sides, I'm just telling you what I see. Hang on. At this point, Putin seems a little pissed off. And while I don't even want to begin to try to get in his mind or figure out what he's going to do, I think it's done proven that we can't do that. Well, I mean, some people thought he was going to invade, clearly, but anyway, there are other things that are very similar to this. Russia is changing their position on Ukraine's EU membership bid, okay? So it was just, they said hell no to NATO, right? But now they're saying hell no to the EU as well. It says here, Russia has altered its stance on Ukraine's prospects of EU membership. Moscow's deputy permanent representative to the UN, Dmitry Polyansky, has revealed such a goal cannot be part of any peace deal with Kiev, the diplomat told Unheard News in an interview on Thursday. Previously, Moscow was not concerned about the prospects of Ukraine eventually joining the organization, he indicated, but the position has since shifted. Polyansky explained that the catalyst was Brussels' behavior since Russia launched its offensive in February. Moscow feels that the EU has become completely aligned with the U.S.-led NATO. He particularly pointed at a recent statement from the bloc's chief diplomat, Josep Borrell, in which the Spanish-born official openly expressed a preference for a military solution to the present conflict. We were at this point not very worrying about the European Union, but the situation has changed after Mr. Borrell's statement that this war should be won on the battleground, and after the fact that the European Union is the leader in deliveries of arms to Ukraine. I think that our position on the European Union now is more similar to NATO because we don't see a big difference, Polyansky stated. The conflict has already escalated to the point that there's little to no place for diplomacy left, he admitted. Polyansky blamed what he described as the lack of constructive dialogue, the inability of Kiev to keep its promises, and Western efforts to prolong the hostilities for the situation. At this point, frankly, I see no diplomatic possibilities given to the position of Ukraine. Given the fueling of this conflict by the West, being a diplomat, I have to acknowledge that there is no way for diplomacy right now, he insisted. Polyansky refused to provide any estimates for how long the conflict could go on. I don't have a crystal ball to predict such things, he said. So, and of course, you know the rest of the story with that. And then here, I guess I'd probably be smarter to do this one next. The $40 billion Ukraine aid package was delayed in U.S. Congress. I hope it's more than just delayed. I hope it's dropped. It says the U.S. plan to provide nearly $40 billion in additional military and economic aid to Ukraine amid its conflict with Russia has hit a speed bump, with Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky blocking a quick vote to approve the funding bill and likely delaying passage to at least next week. Paul stood in the way on Thursday by objecting to a request by Senate leaders to approve unanimous consent, a provision that allows bills with strong bipartisan support to be fast-tracked without debate. The former presidential candidate said he would only allow for a quick vote if the bill was revised to include the appointment of a special inspector general to monitor how the massive aid package is spent, a demand that Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer refused to meet. Of course they refused it. Schumer claimed that Washington had a moral obligation to help Ukraine in its fight against Russian President Vladimir Putin's immoral war. He said Paul's oversight provision was strongly opposed by Democrats and Republicans alike. There is now only one thing holding us back. The junior senator from Kentucky is preventing swift package of Ukraine aid because he wants to add, at the last minute, his own changes directly into the bill, the majority leader said. He added, and he will accomplish, and all he will accomplish is to single-handedly delay desperately needed Ukraine aid. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell also pressed for an immediate vote on the bill, which passed overwhelmingly in the House on Wednesday. He called for Paul's revision to be voted on as an amendment, which would likely fail, clearing the way for passage of the aid package. So, Paul insisted his proposal be added to the bill, which would require that the revised legislation go back to the House for another vote and after Senate approval. He noted that the latest package would bring total U.S. aid to Ukraine to $60 billion since the conflict began in February, nearly as much as Russia earmarks annually for its entire defense budget. The senator argued that the U.S. would be funding Ukraine's war effort with borrowed money, adding to America's $30 trillion debt and worsening its inflation crisis. Americans are feeling the pain, and Congress seems intent on only adding to that pain by shoving more money out the door as fast as they can, Paul said. So, and I can't disagree with it. I'll go ahead and finish up here. It says the aid bill passed the House with support from all Democrats, all but 57, and all but 57 Republicans. The package would be more than double the total amount sent to the 10 largest recipients of U.S. foreign aid in 2021. Those who opposed the legislation, such as Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, were accused of spreading Putin's propaganda. Paul said the U.S. is still trying to recover financially from the $1.6 trillion spent on the Middle East wars and the $5 trillion borrowed to fund the response to the COVID-19 pandemic. We should not forget that the Soviet Union collapsed in large part not because it was defeated militarily, but because it ran out of money, he said. In an attempt to save Ukraine, will we doom the U.S. to such a future? I would say that without the prospect of Ukraine we're probably in for a pretty rough time. So, I don't know. This is crazy. Absolutely crazy. Let's see. Sip of coffee. So then, to make things worse, we got Potato Head. U.S. cancels oil lease sales despite fuel crisis. I mean, it's almost like he put together a team that gets together every morning and says, okay, how can we just ram this country into the ground as far as possible between the time we start and the time we stop? And they hold a meeting for about, hour or so, do a bunch of brainstorming, and then they pick all the ideas and try. Anyway, sorry. More to the actual story here. President Joe Biden's administration has canceled 3 offshore oil and natural gas lease sales, including one in Alaska, diminishing prospects for new sources of supply, even as record gasoline prices help keep the U.S. inflation rate at a 40-year high. The U.S. Department of the Interior announced the decision on Wednesday, calling off lease sales in the Gulf of Mexico and Alaska's Cook Inlet. The department blamed conflicting court findings for complicating its work on the Gulf of Mexico auction and lack of industry interest for torpedoing the Alaska offering. The sales were canceled despite a law requiring the DOI to complete its 5-year leasing plan, including the Gulf of Mexico and Cook Inlet auctions, by the end of next month. The decision also comes as fallout from sanctions against Russia over the Ukraine crisis accelerates the rise in energy prices. U.S. gasoline prices set all-time highs 3 days in a row this week, reaching an average of $4.42 a gallon for the cheapest grade on Thursday. Diesel is near $5.56 a gallon, also a record. Biden's decision to cancel the Alaska oil and gas lease sale makes 0 sense in this energy-constrained environment, said Dan Eberhardt, CEO of drilling services contractor Canary LLC. America is short on supply and consumers are paying the price at the pump. Biden has blamed Russian President Vladimir Putin, U.S. oil companies, and Republicans for surging fuel prices. However, critics have pointed out that the president revoked a permit for extension to the Keystone XL pipeline, which would have carried more than 800,000 barrels a day of Canadian crude to the U.S. Gulf Coast refiners, and his administration has failed to make new exploration prospects on federal lands available. It's day 477 of the Biden administration. We have record gas prices, and they still have not leased 1 acre of land to drill oil, Representative Dan Crenshaw said on Thursday. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell noted the U.S. gasoline prices have risen by more than $2 per gallon since Biden took office in January 2021. The president has spoken about the need for additional supplies in the market, but his administration has failed to take action to match that rhetoric. American Petroleum Institute executive Frank, Macchiarola, said in the kind of price environment that we're seeing, there are negative consequences to shutting off gas development both politically and practically. The Alaska sale alone would have offered up more than 1 million acres of exploration prospects with the potential to yield production for 4 or more decades. So, Potato Joe. You know, I'm all about trying to transition. I've said it a million times. Trying to transition from as many fossil fuels. I don't, you know, I don't think that it should be something that should be crammed down people's throats. I think they should be able to make the choice themselves when they so choose. I think that you should let the market dictate the demand. And I also think that once you start building an extremely worthwhile electric vehicle at a decent price, I don't think that you're going to have to force anything. I think people will automatically, many people, you're going to have people that are going to want to drive the gasoline vehicles. Who cares? You provide a better deal for having an electric vehicle, and people will buy an electric vehicle. That's just the way it goes. They see it's reliable. They see that whatever, that, you know, there's not a lot of cons to it. They see that it's working. People will make that choice themselves. They will go over to that. I don't think that they have to just cram it down people's throats. I think that's wrong. You know, I want to get myself, I'd love to see us get away from fossil fuels and stuff, but again, by choice. I think if somebody wants to have that big old V8 and that late 70s, you know, muscle car, I think they damn well have the right to do so. And I think that's that. I think you're going to have so many people, if you make a product affordable, that's clearly a good idea, a good plan, you're going to have people run to it. And the more people that run to it, the less people that are going to be out there using the gasoline engines, using the diesel engines, and the pollution problem's going to just dwindle away. No need to force anything. Make a good product for a fair price. Sorry. Anyway, that's what's going on with that. Got one more tab open for you. I'm sure you've heard a bit about this from different channels lately. It's absolutely something that we should be concerned with. Not just North Korea, but I'm sure you've heard about prospects of Iran and them possibly launching an EMP or an HEMP. I don't trust anybody. I don't even trust our own government at this point, right? If we experienced an EMP, I am not going to jump to point fingers. I'll tell you that damn much. I'm just going to deal with the situation at hand and try to figure out the rest later if I can. It's really not important at that time. So anyway, I really think people need to be on their game. I really do. There's a whole lot. I don't know. I don't know who's going to reach out and touch us. I just have a feeling somebody's going to reach out and touch us. Now, I don't necessarily know whether or not that would be the big kickoff, but I have a feeling somebody's about to reach out and touch us. Anyway, as you see here, it says U.S. voices North Korea nuke test fears. North Korea may return to testing nukes before the month's end for the first time since 2017. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said during a press briefing on Thursday. The prediction was consistent with the DPRK's recent public statements and destabilizing actions, including the test launch of multiple intercontinental ballistic missiles, she continued. Pyongyang has held 16 missile launches so far this year, including an ICBM set off in March, but has not conducted any nuclear tests since September of 2017. Psaki previously reported that the U.S. was monitoring North Korea for potential destabilizing moves, noting that U.S. President Joe Biden planned to visit South Korea and Japan from May 20th to the 24th. While she declined to reveal whether he would visit the demilitarized zone, she acknowledged that such visits are a step that is taken by many who visit the region. While Biden's predecessor, Donald Trump, repeatedly met with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un in an effort to convince Pyongyang to denuclearize, Biden has returned to previous president's policy of demanding a total shutdown of the country's nuclear program before even considering the loosening of sanctions. With no negotiations forthcoming, North Korea dispensed with the self-imposed moratorium on long-range missile testing it adopted as a show of good faith during the Trump administration, though it has maintained its nuclear pause. The DPRK warned last month that it would take decisive action to crush any hostile foreign power at the fastest possible speed, vowing to continue its nuclear program in order to ready at any time should the U.S. attack, and even to use such weapons preemptively if needed. The country also boasted of testing a new type tactical guided weapon in order to bolster the efficiency of its tactical nukes. And to all of that, I will add that right now, they appear in North Korea to be in a medical crisis. So reportedly, it's COVID. So I don't know. But apparently, they've even put out some type of a medical emergency thing or what have you. I think it's in the headlines today. I don't know if I said something yesterday on it too, or maybe the day before, I don't know. Seems like I said something about it one other day too. Alright, speaking of headlines, let's get to those. And it's actually the first thing here. North Korea declares health emergency. That's what I was thinking, but I wasn't positive. I'm like, seems like that I can specifically remember that today. But that's something else to consider in all of this because, well, if they have a major outbreak, major issues there, that could prompt them to act out a little bit too. Yeah, I know. I got a show and stuff going on. I'm just hanging out. Grabbing a few vapes. I'm allowed. My boss lets me. Alright. Already covered that. Airliner burst into flames during takeoff. Finnish leaders make a statement on NATO. Czechs allow citizens to fight for Ukraine. Siemens is leaving Russia. Not Siemens. Siemens, it's a company. Ukraine to seize Russian banks. Treat Russia like Nazi Germany, says Poland. Apple no longer world's most valuable company. Kiev rejects Russia's gas transit request. Women attacked in Poland over Victory Day. A ruble named world's best performing currency. Russia responds to food crisis accusations. Covered that. Media names date of Sweden's NATO bid. And Sweden will be brought right in. More EU firms meet Moscow's gas payment demand, says media. Nike cuts ties with Russian giants. EU states lawmakers pave way to demolishing Soviet memorial. Russia set to reap largest ever wheat harvest. U.S. Senate votes on abortion bill. U.S. committed crimes against indigenous children, says a report. U.S. reveals steps to track hypersonic missiles. I mean, you know, why not? Why not just put your entire plan out there, when you're going to put the satellites up, how the satellites work? You know, why not just put that right out there in a big old article for everybody to see? I mean, we're not even talking a baked potato. We're talking like frickin' twice baked potato, right? We're talking about that shit was baked, it was mashed, and rebaked again with some out of date spoiled sour cream on top. Yeah. Let's see. Moscow reacts to deadly cross-border attack. Russia stops gas transit through Poland. Germany not ready for Russian gas embargo, says an official. Met police referrals for Partygate top 100. Disney reveals losses from leaving Russian market. Switzerland releases some frozen Russian assets. A dictator's son wins presidential election. Not a surprise, right? Russia's not our enemy, says a U.S. congressman. Russia sanctions will trigger global food and energy crises, says China. And I would say they already have. But it's not just that. It's a lot of stuff, including a potato head president. UK PM comments on sending Ukrainian refugees to Africa. Russia changes position on Ukraine's EU membership. Oh, I covered that, sorry. No nukes for Ukraine, says the State Department. Russia comments on allegations of violence against children in Ukraine. Deadly explosion hits busy road. I can't remember where. Karachi. Photo confirms what's at the center of our galaxy. And it's most certainly a Milky Way bar. That's where they get the filling, right? They mine the center of the universe for... Don't tell me I was lied to. U.S. cancels oil lease sales despite... Oh, I covered that. UK looking for Soviet weaponry to prop up Ukraine. Covered that. U.S. voices... Oh, covered that. China votes against UN probe of alleged Russian war crimes. Covered that. And lastly, U.S. congressman goes commie hunting. So there you go. Bunch of exciting headlines. Just keep your heads on a swivel, folks. Keep poking at it. I believe it was, I think, who was it? Was it Pinball Preparedness? Might have been, did a video about a little deeper into this, the possibility of Iran, setting off an HEMP. I think it was Pinball Preparedness. I would recommend watching that. He goes into detail about a report that came out, and they think that it's a possibility. We could be looking at such, I guess, in the coming weeks. So I would suggest you go find that video. I'm scrolling real quick. City Prepping also did a good video today. Trying to see, because it could have been Southern Prepper 1 as well. Hang on. I'm peeking. Peeking. Yep, it was Pinball this morning. Might have been his first video this morning. It was titled Prepping DHS Upgrades Possibility of Iranian EMP Strike. So, probably a good video to watch. And like I say, keep your heads on a swivel. Keep it getting prepared. And just be ready. You know, go back to check your batteries and stuff again. Go check. Just go check on everything. If you haven't swapped out your seasons on your bug out bag, now's the time to do it. Now is probably a little past the time to do it, but now is definitely not too late. I need to do that myself. So anyway, I'm gonna get out of here, and I hope you all have a good weekend. God willing, we'll see you on Sunday. And as always, God bless you. We love you. Be one with your spirit. And shalom.